Here's a story based on the title top HFY Stories, A Hard Bargain. The negotiation chamber was a sterile, metallic room aboard the Galactic Concorde's flagship. Representatives from Earth sat across the table from a delegation of Xynorans, a reptilian species known for their cold pragmatism. At stake was the survival of humanity itself. Earth's resources were dwindling after years of interstellar conflict. The Xynorans, masters of genetic engineering and environmental rejuvenation, held the technology humanity desperately needed. But their terms were harsh. Earth would become a vassal state, its people subservient to Xynoran rule. Ambassador Elena Torres adjusted her headset and locked eyes with Slavok, the Xynoran lead negotiator. His slitted pupils dilated slightly, a subtle display of confidence. He believed he had the upper hand. "Ambassador Torres," Slavok hissed, "your species has no leverage. Your resources are depleted, your fleets shattered. Accept our terms, and your people will live. Refuse, and extinction will be your legacy." Elena leaned forward, a slight smirk curling her lips. "You're wrong, Slavok. Humanity always has leverage. It's called adaptability." Slavok's forked tongue flicked in confusion. "Explain." Elena activated a hologram in the center of the table. A rotating image of Earth appeared, followed by projections of Xynoran star systems. "We know your empire is spread thin," she began. "Your fleets are committed to maintaining control over dozens of unruly client species. You rely on them for raw materials and labor. Without their cooperation, your empire crumbles." Slavok growled. "Empty threats. Your kind lacks the strength to challenge us directly." Elena's smirk widened. "Perhaps. But strength isn't always about brute force. Humanity excels at turning disadvantages into opportunities. If you push us into a corner, we'll make sure the chaos spreads. We've already sent envoys to the client worlds you oppress. Your empire is one spark away from rebellion." The Xynoran delegation exchanged uneasy glances. Slavok's scales darkened, a sign of agitation. "And if we were to agree to a more equitable arrangement?" he asked cautiously. Elena's voice remained steady, but her gaze was sharp as steel. "We want access to your terraforming technology. In exchange, we'll provide expertise in conflict resolution, trade logistics, and innovation. Humanity thrives under pressure, Slavok. We'll help stabilize your empire, on equal footing. Refuse, and we'll make sure you remember what humans are capable of when survival's on the line." The room fell silent, tension thick in the air. Finally, Slavok nodded, his expression unreadable. "Very well, Ambassador Torres. Let us strike this bargain." As the Xynorans departed to draft the new treaty, Elena allowed herself a moment of relief. Humanity's spirit had won the day, not with weapons, but with resilience and determination. Sometimes, the hardest bargains were the ones that showcased just how far humanity could go to survive and thrive. What did you think? Here's the continuation of the story. As the Xynoran delegation left the chamber, Elena turned to her team of advisors. They were a diverse mix: engineers, linguists, diplomats, and strategists, all united under the banner of a resilient Earth. "What's the next step?" asked Commander Vasquez, the military liaison on the team. "We don't celebrate just yet," Elena replied. "This agreement is a temporary truce, not a lasting peace. The Xynorans are pragmatic, but they'll never stop seeing us as tools to exploit. We need to ensure that humanity holds its own in this partnership." Drive, Malik, the lead scientist, adjusted his glasses and spoke up. "The terraforming tech will give us an edge, but we need to reverse engineer it quickly. If we rely on them too much, they'll have leverage over us again." Elena nodded. "Exactly, Vasquez. I want you to coordinate with our fleet, quietly ramp up defensive production. If this alliance sours, we need to be ready." "And the other species under Xynoran control?" asked Leah, the team's cultural analyst. Elena smiled. "We'll keep the lines of communication open. The Xynorans know their empire is fragile, that's why they agreed to the deal. If they falter, we'll be ready to step in, but for now, we play the role of the cooperative partner. Let them think they've won." The room buzzed with activity as orders were issued and plans set in motion. Humanity had secured a foothold, but the road ahead was fraught with challenges. 2 weeks later, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Terran flagship, the Resolute, watching Earth rise in the distance. The Zynarans had delivered the first shipment of terraforming equipment, and engineers were already deploying it to stabilize the planet's failing ecosystems. But not everything was going as smoothly as it seemed. Reports were coming in of unrest on Zynaran-controlled worlds. Whispers of rebellion, fueled by human envoys, were spreading like wildfire. "Ambassador," came a voice behind her. It was Slavok, accompanied by a pair of Zynaran guards. "I trust you are satisfied with our cooperation thus far." Elena turned, her face a mask of polite diplomacy. "We are making progress, Slavok, though I must admit, your empire's stability appears tenuous." Slavok's pupils narrowed. "Do not mistake isolated incidents for weakness, human. Our grip is unyielding." "Of course," Elena said smoothly. "Still, humanity values stability. If your empire ever needs assistance in maintaining order, we are willing to offer advice." Slavok's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he turned and walked away. As soon as he was gone, Elena tapped a hidden communicator on her wrist. "Send a message to our contacts in the Zeldar and Krinth systems," she ordered. "Let them know we're ready to escalate support if they're prepared to act." "Understood," came the reply. Months later, the fragile alliance began to fray as rebellion erupted across multiple Zynaran territories. Humanity had played its hand carefully, feeding the flames of revolution while strengthening its own position. Elena stood once more in the negotiation chamber, this time with representatives from newly liberated worlds. "Together," she said, "we can build something better, an alliance of equals. Humanity has shown what we can achieve under pressure. Now, let's see what we can accomplish together." The room erupted in applause. The Zynaran Empire was crumbling, and in its place, a new coalition was rising. Humanity had made its mark, not through domination, but through persistence, ingenuity, and an unyielding belief in its potential. Would you like to expand on a specific aspect of the story? Here's the continuation. A year later, the Galactic Concord was no longer a fractured assembly of client species under Zynaran rule. Instead, it had transformed into a true alliance of independent worlds, bound by shared goals and mutual respect. The humans, Zeldar, Krinth, and others worked tirelessly to repair the damage left in the wake of the Zynaran Empire's collapse. Elena Torres, now recognized as one of the architects of this new coalition, stood at the grand podium of the newly constructed Concord Assembly Hall. Representatives from over 100 species filled the vast chamber, their attention fixed on her. "The galaxy is no longer divided by fear and subjugation," Elena began, her voice firm yet hopeful. "We've proven that cooperation isn't a weakness, but our greatest strength. Together, we've turned the tide of history. Now, it's up to us to ensure the future we've fought for remains bright." The chamber erupted in cheers and applause, but Elena knew the work was far from over. Meanwhile, in the shadows, not everyone was pleased with the fall of the Zynaran Empire. Deep in uncharted space, remnants of the old regime had gathered. A shadow council of former Zynaran leaders debated their next move, their scales gleaming under the dim light of a hidden stronghold. "The humans have destabilized everything," growled Slavok, now stripped of his former authority, "but they underestimate our resolve." Another council member, a grizzled general, hissed in agreement, "We've lost the Central Empire, but our fleets are still formidable. With time and cunning, we can strike back." "But not through brute force," a third voice interjected, a scientist whose brilliant mind had once been behind the Zynaran terraforming technology. "Humans thrive on direct conflict. We need subtlety, misdirection. Let them believe they've won, while we plant the seeds of their downfall." Slavok's eyes gleamed with a renewed sense of purpose. Then it settled. "We'll rebuild in the shadows and exploit the cracks in their fragile coalition. When the time is right, the Zynarans will rise again." Back at the Concord, Elena sat in her private quarters aboard the Resolute, reading the latest reports. Tensions were flaring in some regions of the Concord, minor disputes over resources, old rivalries resurfacing. It was to be expected in such a diverse alliance. but it reminded her that peace was always fragile. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was her chief intelligence officer, Commander Vasquez. "Ambassador, we've intercepted a transmission from the far reaches of the former Zyneran territories. It's encrypted, but the patterns suggest it's from Slavok's faction." Elena's heart sank. "What's the message?" "We're still decoding it, but early analysis suggests they're rallying support for a counterstrike. We believe they're leveraging sleeper cells within the Concorde to destabilize key systems." Elena leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. "Alert all member worlds, tighten security protocols, and tell our intelligence teams to find those sleeper cells before they act." "Understood, Ma'am." As the transmission ended, Elena gazed out at the stars. Humanity had come far, but the galaxy was a vast, ever-shifting landscape. If the Zynarans thought humanity wasn't prepared for their return, they were gravely mistaken. Elena smiled faintly. "Let them come," she murmured to herself. "We're ready for a hard bargain, again." Would you like to explore the next phase of this interstellar conflict or dive deeper into specific characters or events? Here's the continuation of the story. 2 years later, the Galactic Concorde had grown into a powerful coalition, uniting over 150 worlds under a shared vision of peace and prosperity. New technologies, born from human ingenuity and Zyneran science, revitalized planets that had once been on the brink of collapse. Yet, beneath the surface, whispers of rebellion stirred. Elena Torres, now the supreme envoy of the Concorde, sat in a war council meeting aboard the Concorde flagship, Unity's vanguard. Around her were representatives from various species, their expressions tense as they reviewed the latest intelligence. Commander Vasquez stood to address the room. "Our agents have confirmed the presence of Slavok's forces in the Helix Nebula. They've been gathering remnants of the old Zyneran fleets and recruiting mercenaries from fringe worlds." "How many ships are we talking about?" asked Rilara, a Zeldar strategist. "At least 400 confirmed vessels," Vasquez replied. "Their strength rivals some of our largest Concorde fleets. Worse, they've been using sleeper cells to sabotage critical Concorde infrastructure. Last week, we lost a communications hub in the Theta cluster." The room buzzed with alarm. Elena raised her hand, silencing the discussion. "We always knew Slavok wouldn't disappear quietly, but we won't let him fracture what we've built. This isn't just a military threat, it's a test of the Concorde's unity. If we falter now, we'll prove him right." The Shadow Campaign. Slavok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vindicator. The once proud leader of the Zyneran Empire was now a warlord, his scales dulled but his resolve sharper than ever. "Our infiltrators have sown enough discord within the Concorde," he told his gathered officers. "When we strike, their unity will crumble. The humans think they can hold the galaxy together with speeches and promises. They've underestimated our patience and our vengeance." His second-in-command, a fierce warrior named Carlex, bared his fangs. "What of the other species in the Concorde? Many of them despised us under the old empire. They won't submit willingly." "They don't have to," Slavok replied, his tone cold. "We only need to make them doubt their leaders. Once chaos takes hold, we'll offer them a choice: join us or burn." The Battle of Helix Nebula. The Concorde fleet, led by Elena and Commander Vasquez, arrived in the Helix Nebula to confront Slavok's forces. The nebula's swirling gases created a beautiful but treacherous battlefield, with sensor interference and unstable energy pockets complicating strategy. "All ships, hold formation," Vasquez ordered over the fleet-wide comm. "We need to draw them out into open space." The Zyneran fleet emerged, their ships sleek and menacing, bristling with stolen technology. As the two forces clashed, the nebula lit up with the fury of plasma blasts and energy beams. Elena directed the battle from the bridge of the Unity's vanguard, her calm demeanor masking the tension she felt. "Deploy the frigate wings to flank their position. Focus fire on their command ships." As the battle raged, a coded message reached Elena's console. It was from an undercover agent embedded in Slavok's fleet. "Supreme Envoy," the agent's voice crackled, "I've confirmed Slavok is aboard the Vindicator. He's coordinating their forces from there. If we can neutralize his flagship, their fleet will fall into disarray. Elena didn't hesitate. Relay the coordinates to the strike teams. Commander Vasquez, prepare our elite squadron for an infiltration mission. If we take out Slavok, this war ends today. The final confrontation. The elite squadron, led by Vasquez, boarded the Vindicator amidst the chaos of battle. Fighting their way through Zyneran guards, they reached the command center, where Slavok awaited them. So, the humans send their pawns to do their dirty work, Slavok sneered. Typical. Vasquez raised his weapon. Your reign ends here, Slavok, surrender, and maybe we'll show you mercy. Slavok laughed, his claws flexing. Mercy, from humans? You've built your empire on deceit and manipulation, but you'll never break the Zyneran spirit. The fight that followed was brutal, with Slavok proving why he had once ruled an empire, but in the end, Vasquez's squad emerged victorious, capturing the warlord alive. A new dawn. With Slavok's capture, his fleet surrendered, and the remnants of the Zyneran resistance crumbled. The Galactic Concord celebrated its victory, but Elena knew this was only the beginning. Peace is fragile, she said during a speech to the assembly, but we've shown that unity is stronger than fear. As long as we stand together, no force in the galaxy can divide us. The room erupted in applause, and Elena allowed herself a rare moment of hope. Humanity had faced a hard bargain, and emerged stronger than ever. Would you like to explore more of the Concord's future, the rebuilding efforts, or delve into the personal journeys of specific characters?